Welcome back. In previous videos, we've gone through all of this and we've gone through the basics of pandas here. So I'm just going to rerun some of these cells, how we can get more information from pandas. So now we're going to focus on how you can select subsets of data using the pandas library in Python. First thing we're going to look at is the columns function, right? So with this, it's an attribute, not a function, where you're able to list out the attributes of a particular pandas data frame. So we can run this, it gives us that. So indeed, if you look at the head of this data frame, you see that yes, in fact, those are indeed the columns that are present. Next, you might want to select a specific subset of a data type. So say, for example, looking at this data frame, which is the iris data set, you want to select all the number-like columns, right? To do that, you're going to use the select d types, which is select data types function in pandas. And you're going to specify the include keyword and say, okay, we want to include just the numbers. So once we run this, it's going to give us this. You notice that the species column is excluded from this because we said we just want to include the number data type, which is great. Now, what if instead you only want the text, in this case, species? So what we could do is we just do this and it selects only the species column, which is also awesome. So we've looked at this. Now, what if for your data sets, you're just interested in a pandas series? So with this, there are two ways you can actually select one column out of a data frame. You know, a column in a data frame is essentially a pandas series. To do that, you can use the dot notation like we have here, dot the column name, which in this case is species. So if you run this, this works, and it gives us essentially the pandas series of a specified length. This approach with the square brackets is the approach I would recommend. And so that's what we're going to use, where you have your data frame name, in this case is df. You have your square brackets, make it look like you're subscribing it. And within the square brackets, you provide the name of the column you want to extract out, right? So this is what you do. Next, we're going to talk about label-based indexing. Sometimes in your data frame, you don't want to select just one series. You don't want to select just the first few rows or the bottom rows. You want to select something maybe somewhere in the middle of the data set, right? A small subset of your data. To do that in pandas, you can use the LOC function or the ILOC function. Now, there are two different things. There's LOC and there's the ILOC. LOC is used for label-based indexing. ILOC is used for integer-based indexing. Personally, I use the LOC because it's more intuitive, and I'll show you how. Whenever I use the LOC function, you're going to use the square brackets after the LOC keyword. And you see it has a certain structure. There's a semicolon, there's a colon, there's a comma, and then there's a colon there as well. Now, whenever you supply the colon, you're saying, give me all the rows. So you first have to specify the rows, comma, the colon. Whenever I use a colon there, you're saying, okay, give me all the rows in this data set. With a comma, now you're trying to specify, okay, give me all the columns in this data set. So which is what we have here. So that's why it essentially just returns everything, which is great. So what if instead of you still want all the rows, you can use the colon there in front of the comma. And then let's say you don't want every column. You can specify the columns you want as a Python list, and each element in the list will be a column name. So like we've done here, let's say this is what we want to do. So let's run this and see. Now you'd see here, it just returns the species column and the petal length centimeter column. What if you want to select something else? Let's say species petal width. You do the same thing. You specify the name of the data frame with a dot, the LOC command. You specify square brackets, and then you specify row, comma, columns. So whenever you put the colon there, you're saying, give me all the rows, comma, then you provide a list of the columns you want to specify. In this case, species and petal width. and this gives us this output. There are times when you don't want to specify or collect every row. You have some specific rows you want to get out of it, and you have some specific columns. This is actually a more common use case than you might imagine. So let's do that. Now here we're saying, okay, give me row label 1 and row label 2, and also give me the species column and the petal width centimeter. So that is here, row label 1, this is it, 0.2, and then row label 2, 0.2. Okay, what if we want to specify the same specifics here, but with more columns? We could just easily add something else. Let's say we include the length, and yeah, this is what we have here. So we've looked at how to use the LOC command to get subsets of your data. Now that's my preferred method, although you could use other methods as well. The second approach is using the ILOC. That is essentially integer-based indexing. Let me change this. To get the columns, we can look at the head of the data. So ILOC, it follows the same format. The name of your data frame, the dot, ILOC, square brackets, what it expects in front of the comma are the rows you're interested in, comma, then after, the columns you're interested in expressed as a Python list. In this case, we want all the rows and want all the columns. So that's why we put the colon there, colon, comma, colon. So this just gives us the entire data frame essentially. What if you don't want that? Let's say you want a subset of the rows instead. You'd notice something very different with the ILOC. It behaves more like every other kind of indexing you expect in Python. So I personally like to use the LOC instead, but you know, this is just one way to do it. You'll see here we say 0, 2. What that is saying is give me integer row 0, row 1, but exclude 2. Now the first row is row 0. This is row 1, row 2, row 3, all the way down. So when I say 0, 2, I'm saying give me row 0, row 1, but exclude 2. And then give me all the columns. So let's say I want to see this first 5 rows. Row 0, row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4. I don't want to see row 5. What I'm going to do is change this 2 to 5. And it returns just the subset right there using the ILOC command. So this is how it works. What if I'm not interested in everything? I'm just interested in a subset of the columns as well. So give me a subset of the rows, give me a subset of the columns. That's what I want to do. To do that, the trick is knowing that this first column is called column 0, column 1, column 2, column 3, column 4, column 5. So 0, 2 means give me column 0 and column 1. I don't care about column 2. Meaning when we run this, what we should get will be column ID and sepal length. So let's see. What if I want this column? I just want the sepal length, sepal width, petal length, petal width. So I'm going to start from column 0, column 1. I'm going to start from column 1. I want column 2, column 3, column 4. I don't want column 5. So I'm going to change this to 1. So start from 1, which is 0, 1, sepal length CM. And I don't want column 5. So let's do this. And that's how it works. So let's look at another example here using the ILOC. Let's say I'm interested in just these 2 columns, or let's say these 3, petal length, petal width, and species. So I know this is column 0, column 1, column 2, column 3. So I know I'm going to start from 3. So let me change this to 3. I want 4 and I also want 5. I could just do this. Start from column 3 all the way to the end. And give me column 0 all the way to row 6. Let's do it this way. Okay. This is how it works. So it gives us, starting from column 3, which is column 0, column 1, column 2, column 3, petal length, all the way to the end. So that is what that column means. This is how you perform your subsetting using pandas, using either the LOC or the ILOC. In the next video, we're going to go over some other methods that you could use with your Pandas data frame. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.